Life in the NBA is usually not easy for second-round picks. Most of the players selected in the round end outside of the league after a few seasons, and some of them don't even get to play in a single game. But not all of them finish in the NBA purgatory. Players like Manu Ginobili, Gilbert Arenas, and Dennis Rodman enjoyed successful careers despite being selected in the second round. And a few decades later, players like Isaiah Thomas, Chris Middleton, and Nikola Jokic have kept on proving that there's all-star talent to be found outside of the first round. So, it comes as no surprise that Malcolm Brogdon has become one of the latest additions to the list of surprising second-rounders. And while he still hasn't been named to the All-Star team or won any championships, he's already done some amazing things in his short career. And we should probably expect to see more out of him in the coming years. But what exactly makes Brogdon's rise so unique? And does he really have the potential to turn into a star? Well, let's talk about it. Coming out of Virginia as a senior, Brogdon's resume was already impressive. His numbers weren't those of a future NBA star, but his production during his final college season was more than enough to catch the attention of scouts. His leadership was also on full display as he led his team to the Elite Eight in the NCAA tournament, while also becoming the receiver of multiple awards and the first player in ACC history to win Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year during the same season. But even despite his excellence on both ends of the court, most teams decided to pass on him during the draft ceremony. He ended up as the 36th pick, but even though most people didn't know him that well at the time, it wouldn't take him long to make everybody realize how good he was. A few months into his rookie season, he had already turned into a valuable piece for a Bucks team that was still learning how to win games consistently. And while his production wasn't outstanding, he was one of the few players in his class that managed to make a positive impact on a winning team while also playing in most games. So once everything was said and done, he became the first second-round pick since 1965 to win Rookie of the Year, as well as the first Bucks player to win the award since Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in 1970. However, winning the award wasn't enough for him to turn doubters into believers. Most of the other players in his class had poor rookie seasons, and the only competition he faced was Joel Embiid and Dario Saric, who had both been drafted in 2014. He also became the player with the lowest points and minutes averages among all the winners in the award's history. So even though he had a solid season, it was reasonable for people to question the value of his trophy. But he kept working on his game, and before long, he added another impressive milestone to his resume. By year 3, he had already turned into a solid starter at the point guard position for a Bucks team that finished the season with the best record in the league. But the most surprising thing about his game at that point was his shooting numbers. Despite having a limited role within the offense, Brogdon finished the season with shooting splits of 50, 42, and 92, thus becoming the 8th player in league history to join the 50-40-90 club, and just the first one to post such numbers without previously having at least one selection to the All-Star team. However, once it was time to decide on his contract, the Bucks decided to let him go. They didn't want to match the $85 million the Pacers had offered him, and instead worked on a sign and trade to get a few picks in return. At first, the decision seemed like a reasonable one for the team. They had just extended Middleton's and Bledsoe's contracts, so using that kind of money on a role player was probably not a smart financial move. But once again, it wouldn't take long for Brogdon to prove everyone he was better than what people thought. Although he would have preferred to spend the rest of his career with the team that drafted him, he was also excited about the idea of having a bigger role with the Pacers. And as soon as the season got going, we could tell why. During his first season in Indiana, he averaged career highs in minutes, points, rebounds, and assists per game. He quickly emerged as one of the leaders of the team, and if it wasn't because of injuries, he probably would have been in the conversation for the All-Star team. But he wasn't satisfied with that. Even though he was already surprising most people with his production, he showed he still had another gear once the playoffs came around. While he could not stop the Pacers from being swept by the Heat, he played the best basketball of his career inside the Orlando bubble. With Sabonis out because of injuries, he took on the responsibility of leading the team on offense and averaged 21.5 points and 10 assists per game as a result. Despite losing the series, his effort was worthy of recognition. However, it's safe to say no one expected him to keep playing like that once everyone was healthy. But once again, he decided to prove the world wrong. With Nate Bjorken replacing McMillan on the sidelines, the Pacers came into the season with the hope of becoming a faster and more aggressive team on the offensive end. They wanted to shoot more threes and run in the open court. And as it turns out, that was music to Brogdon's ears. Despite sharing the floor with Sabonis, Warren, and Oladipo during the first few games of the season, Brogdon was the one leading the charge on offense right out of the gates. And then, once TJ got hurt and Victor was traded, he kept carrying the responsibility to make plays along with Sabonis. As expected, his shot attempts have increased thanks to the changes implemented by Coach Bjorken, and while it's probable he won't finish the season averaging 50-40-90 again, his shooting percentages remain high despite the increased volume. His playmaking remains solid, and he's developed great chemistry with Turner and Sabonis, which has allowed him to run plays more efficiently. He's also averaging a career high in steals per game, showing his commitment to the defensive end remains as strong as ever. But what comes next for him and the team? Well, over the last month, his production has taken a step back in almost all areas, and the Pacers' record has started to show a lot more losses. As a result, what looked like a lock to make the All-Star team at the start of the season turned into nothing but another missed opportunity, and Indiana's position as a playoff contender has become the subject of a lot of questioning. Of course, that can't be blamed exclusively on him. With Warren and Karis LeVert still unavailable, the team's offense has become easier to stop. Rival teams have found ways to make things more complicated for him and Sabonis, and the rest of their teammates haven't been able to provide enough help consistently. On top of that, he and Sabonis have been among the league leaders in minutes played per game, and while neither will use it as an excuse, there have been a few games where they've simply looked drained up. So with the All-Star break finally around, it's safe to say the Pacers will be one of the teams that will benefit the most from the additional time to rest. But considering their schedule is only about to get harder, some rest may not be enough for them to keep pace with the other teams chasing a playoff spot in the East. They've already fallen to 10th place, and while a winning streak could easily see them return into the top 4, a losing streak could take them into the bottom 4 just as easily. In other words, they'll need to get as many wins as they can until either Warren or LeVert is available. And that means Brogdon will need to raise his game once again. He needs to return to the form he showed in January to give the Pacers a chance against the elite teams in the league. Back in January, he averaged almost 24 points per game and failed to score over 20 only 3 times. But since February, his scoring has dropped by almost 5 points, and he scored at least 20 points only in 6 of his last 14 appearances. Not coincidentally, the Pacers have started to lose games more often as Brogdon's scoring has gone down. After winning 7 of their 15 games in January, they've won only 5 of their last 14 games. So even though most of their issues won't be solved if you start scoring some additional points, it's safe to say Indiana has been at its best when Malcolm has been the most aggressive on offense. But does that mean they won't be able to start winning most of their games if he doesn't make any improvements? Well, that's hard to tell. It's almost become a tradition for the Pacers to go through a very difficult stretch every year. Injuries have been affecting their best players rather frequently during the last few seasons, yet somehow they always find a way to make it to the playoffs, and this year probably won't be an exception. However, having everyone healthy and in good rhythm could be the difference between another first-round exit and an extended playoff run. If Warren and LeVert can return to the court with enough time left in the season, everyone would benefit from it, including Brogdon. With more offensive weapons around him, he'd be able to create plays easier for himself and his teammates, and the Pacers as a whole would become a lot more dangerous than they are right now. But if they're not back in time, it'll be up to Malcolm and Sabonis to continue carrying the team as far as they can. And if that's the case, both players will need to be at their best to avoid another embarrassment. All in all, the progression Brogdon has made over the years is nothing short of spectacular. From an undervalued role player to a potential star and franchise leader, he's quickly risen through the ranks while also finding a way to keep impressing people after every step he takes. But now that he's made it this far, the challenges will only keep getting bigger. His leadership and talent will continuously be tested, and if he's not capable of delivering what's expected from him, his team may not be able to make it through the storm. So, do you believe Brogdon will be capable of leading the Pacers through adversity, or will they continue losing most of their games? Let us know in the comments. We hope you've enjoyed today's video, and if you did, remember to like it and subscribe to our channel for more NBA content. We are Courtside.